I'm attorney Michael Tyler, bringing you guests and information to help you get legal. Hello, and welcome back to another installment of Get Legal. I am your host, Baton Rouge attorney Michael Tyler. Today we have some wonderful guests joining us, but before we get into that subject matter, I would first like to talk to you about something that I face all the time within my practice area so I can arm you with information that you may need if you find yourself in the middle of a slip and fall or a trip and fall. Slip and falls and trip and falls can happen at any time. Let's say you're walking into your neighborhood grocer, and as you're entering the door, you slip on the floor and fall on your backside. Or you can be walking through the shopping aisles, and as you're walking through the shopping aisles, you're looking at the products that are merchandised along the aisles, and you fail to see what's in front of you. And what happens to be in front of you is a puddle of water, and it causes you to slip and fall down on your backside. Both of these instances can potentially subject the merchant to liability, but it's not always a guarantee. That is why it's important that if you find yourself in the middle of a slip and fall or a trip and fall, the first thing that you do is to grab your cell phone, as long as you have it on you, so that you can start recording everything that's going on during your surroundings. Number two, you must, at the time of the incident, alert someone in the store that you slipped and fell or tripped and fell in the store. Doing those two things helps to preserve evidence for attorneys such as myself when we have to deal with these grocery stores. Please understand that these grocery stores on a monthly basis experience multiple accusations of premises liability, be it a slip and fall or a trip and fall. When this occurs, that then triggers the requirement that the elements of what is provided in the statute are met so that an attorney such as myself can be successful for you. So, always record the scene. If you can get a picture or a recording of the substance or the item that caused your fall, that goes a long way. Because as the matter proceeds in a deposition, or if it goes to trial and you must testify, you must be able to point to what it was that caused you to slip or trip. If you're unable to prove that, we've lost on inception. Number two, make sure that you do not leave that store without getting an incident report prepared. You may not be able to leave the store with a copy of the incident report, but still force someone in management at that store to notate and detail what happened, the time that it happened, the date that it happened, the location, and any other detail that you feel will be important. If you can take this information whenever you do find yourself to be in the middle of a slip and fall or a trip and fall, this will go a long way towards allowing us to make your case a successful one. But enough about that. Now we're going to get into our guests. Today I am joined by Ms. Brianne Joseph and Ms. Maria Jackson of Sly Fox Investigations.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So now, Sly Fox Investigations, how long have you been performing under Sly Fox?
We have been helping the Baton Rouge area for about 13 years now.
Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. For example, when I first got started, I went to multiple attorneys trying to see what I can do to get in on the ground floor to help learn the business before I went out there and put someone else's case in jeopardy with the limited skills that I knew at the time.
Yeah.
It was very hard to get someone to help me to get into the door. Matter of fact, there was one attorney that I was sure was going to help me. And when I was asking questions via email, of course, the last message I got from that person and the last communication I had with that person was a very short, direct, and to the point, almost in a disrespectful manner, email stating, "I don't have the time to help you out."
Wow.
So as you were deciding to start your business, did you have any instances that's caused you to say, you know what, I'm going to go this my way, and I am going to make this happen?
Oh, absolutely. I had a very similar experience. When I first got my agency license, I was excited. You know, I was totally looking forward to learning the right way to operate a business. And so I decided to go to an industry event to network with other professionals to find out the right way to do that. So I went to the event, and at the networking period for the event, I reached my business card to a gentleman sitting to my right. And surprisingly, he turned his back to me. So I said, okay, bad timing perhaps. So I reached my business card to the one who was sitting to my left. And the gentleman actually looked at my business card and said, no, thank you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there was a woman sitting in front of me, and I thought to myself, well, surely a woman would want to help me and want to get to know me. And I proceeded to reach her the business card. And as soon as we made eye contact, she lowered her head and pretended to look at the menu that was at the table. So needless to say, I was completely humiliated, and I was extremely embarrassed. And I just slowly picked up my purse and walked to my car and went home. And so at one point, you know, I was really sad and disappointed, you know, thinking that I would never be able to have my agency because I had no one to help me. But then I surely realized, and I realized that I really didn't need anybody to help me, that I was the only one that was responsible for my success. And I was ultimately the only one who would determine whether I would win or lose.
Absolutely.
You know, and I chose to win.
Absolutely.
So I went on to start my agency regardless of the difficulty that I experienced. I grew my agency from just a thought to a six-figure brand. I've been featured nationally in other local publications as well. At one point, I was also the Region 2 Director of the Louisiana Private Investigation Association, and I did all of those things by myself and on my own. So if anything, the whole moral of this story is, you know, you have everything you need already inside of you to be successful.
That is true. That is true.
You know, and we have to stop looking for validation. You know, we have to stop looking for external sources of support, because at the end of the day, as I mentioned earlier, we are responsible for our own success, and I'm living proof of that.
Absolutely. Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, I know in my business, I don't do much advertising, so a lot of my clientele comes to me via referrals, which to me is a testament to the good work that I'm doing out here in this city.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Your situation with respect to Maria sitting to your left here, Maria is one of your private investigators,
She
correct?
is.
Okay.
Maria is definitely one of our best investigators, actually.
Okay,
Yes.
but even with that, prior to her being an investigator for you, she was a client.
She was.
Okay. Okay. So,
She was a client.
so with that, Maria, can you just please tell us what happened during your interaction with Ms. Joseph here that caused you to say, you know what, not only do I want to have you to be the one doing work for me, but now I want to come and work for you.
Be a part of the team.
Yes.
My attorney suggests hire a private investigator for custody.
Okay.
And I called her with me, and she took my case, you know, for child custody. And she worked for me that time. She worked for me around 3 weeks,
Yeah.
okay? And every time I talked to her, every time I called it, she was there. She explained to me, she has proof that what I'm looking for, recording, picture, everything, name, address, everything.
Yes.
And it was amazing. But yes, she saw a lot of interest, you know, like I'm trying to tell her how to do her job.
Right.
Yeah, she's very bossy. You
Yeah,
know, she
you-
tried to, she's our client at this time. So, you know, we're trying to help her and tell her what the best things to do are for her
Right.
case. But she's so headstrong, she's telling us how to work the case. And so I'm like, ma'am, you know, at the time you got to let us do our job. So, yeah, she was very headstrong, which in the back of my mind was a good thing. as
Yeah.
you know, later on.
Absolutely. It's a
Yeah.
it's a sign of aggressiveness.
Of leadership.
Exactly. Tenacity. All of
Exactly.
that, which would make a good independent worker.
Yeah,
because,
absolutely.
it's my assumption, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my assumption that when you guys do go out on jobs, that you're independent, you're by yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
And
yeah.
with that, you have to concoct, for lack of a better word, the schemes and methods within the environment that you're in order to be successful at what you need to do.
Oh, absolutely. Surveillance, our company specializes in surveillance, and we specialize in surveillance for insurance fraud, for workers' comp fraud, for infidelity, and for child custody. So as a private investigator, we do have to adapt to different environments, as you mentioned. Yeah, so we do have a bag that we keep in the back of our vehicles with wigs and everything, different outfits, you know, anything that we could use to change our appearance at a moment like this. So, you know, I have played the role of a college kid with a backpack before. You know, I could get in anywhere basically, and most of our girls can as well. But yes, we do have a bag of tricks, in other words, you know, to actually change the way we look and adapt to wherever we're at.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned insurance fraud a second ago. Is that a big component of your business?
Yes, insurance fraud is a huge component of our business, and it's one that right now we have someone on an insurance fraud case as we speak, actually.
Okay.
You know, it's something that we do pretty much every day. And a lot of times what we end up doing is starting really, really early in the morning, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we'll get out before everybody's moving around, and we'll set up surveillance on a given location. And we basically just wait for activity. And then once we get the activity, we follow the individuals and we document their interactions and activities and report that back to the attorneys. Because a lot of times, you know, a lot of people are hurt on some insurance fraud cases. You know, obviously people do get hurt. But, you know, sometimes it's not to the extent that they claim. You know, we've worked.
It's a possibility.
You know, it's not always to the extent that they claim.
Right.
So, you know, a lot of times we've worked cases where we've obtained surveillance video of someone outside playing football.
Okay.
In the middle of the street, running back and forth, getting in the vehicle, driving to the store, doing all of these things, and they may have a deposition later that evening. Now, for the deposition, they'll hire an Uber or a taxi cab because all of a sudden they can't drive, you know, and then they'll also grab the crutches or whatever else they need to get to the deposition. And fortunately for that particular case, we were there to document the difference, and that made a big difference in the case. So that's what we do.
Okay.
You know, we document those different situations to try to help the attorneys determine whether or not a person is hurt to the extent that they claim.
Okay. We're going to have more with Ms. Joseph and Ms. Jackson after we return from this break.
I just see the positive things on the horizon, and BRAC is a real integral part of that.
BRAC's taken a very forward role in trying to help align people and align strategies and align solutions.
You'll find that you'll have an opportunity at BRAC to make a difference.
It's about being a part of conversations and really having a voice in terms of how we move the city forward.
Welcome back. We're joined by Ms. Brianne Joseph and Ms. Maria Jackson of Sly Fox Investigations. When we left off, we were talking about, of course, surveillance and insurance cases. My assumption that's going to be cases where someone has claimed an injury of some sort.
Yes.
I know in my practice, I deal with a lot of significant injuries, and I always, in the initial client meeting and in every subsequent meeting, always advise my clients to be very, very careful when they're out in public. Because if you state that you're injured, that your back is jacked, sort of rhymed, that your back is jacked, then you should be functioning in your normal life as if you truly have that back injury.
Right, absolutely.
So therefore, you should not be doing certain things.
Yeah.
But it's your job to find those
To
certain
catch
things.
those certain things, yes.
To
And-
prove it.
Yes, to prove it. Yeah, because a lot of times we have malingering clients who are just being greedy, you know. They, I mean, that's just really what it is.
I can't say or confirm or deny.
You can't
whether
confirm or
that
deny
happens.
that, right? Well, I can't actually confirm or deny that. But no, they really do. You know, we see a lot. You know, we've been doing this for 13 years.
Okay.
And we do see, you know, as I mentioned before, some people are truly hurt.
Yes.
But a lot of times it's just really not to the extent that they claim. And so when there's doubt, the attorneys will call us and say, hey, Bree, can you go ahead and send someone on this particular person? We want to see what's going on with them and just put an eye on them. And so we'll go out and we'll conduct the surveillance and just basically report what we see.
Yes. Okay. Now, of course, surveillance of potentially injured persons is not all that you guys do.
No.
I seem to remember, based upon our previous conversations, that you guys also do work with child custody cases.
Yes, yes. We enjoy doing the insurance fraud cases, surveillance for them, but I think the greatest satisfaction that we get as far as surveillance cases is definitely the child custody cases. The great thing about our agency is that we are an all-female agency,
Okay.
and all of our investigators are parents. We're mothers.
Oh, okay.
So for us, we really take child custody cases to heart. We believe that children are the most vulnerable members of our society, and we have an obligation to help keep them safe and protected.
Okay.
And with that in mind, we do everything we can to help move them out of harmful situations.
Okay. Absolutely. Do you have any interesting examples of maybe some truly heart-wrenching case that you might have worked on?
Well, for me, anytime a child is in a dangerous situation is a heart-wrenching case, and we do get a lot of those. There have been situations where a parent may have been a drunk and they were continuously drinking and driving with the
okay,
child,
yes.
and we needed to help prove that. A lot of times those types of things are difficult to prove.
Yes.
So once we're able to prove something like drunk driving and things like that, or they may be bringing the children around people with shady backgrounds who they probably should not be around, things like that, you know, that's when we provide the best evidence for those types of cases. Additionally, some of the child custody cases, like for instance, we did one not long ago where the child was left in an abandoned home with a drug abuser.
Oh.
You know, and the mother knew that that was happening, but she had a hard time proving that. And proving drug allegations and things like that can be very, very difficult
Yes.
to do on your own.
Yes.
And hiring a private investigator would definitely be a good move if that's what your intention is, to prove. You know, we can definitely help. So, you know, Maria's a mother. She has 2 kids.
Okay.
And so she shares the same feeling as I do as far as our desire to help get those children in better places.
Absolutely. Now, with that, sticking with this particular genre right here, are there any tips? And I'm asking this only because I know, being on the 4th floor, as we call it as attorneys here at the 19 JDC, that's the family court floor. And on a weekly basis, there are very tense custody issues, you know, on display within the various courtrooms. Are there any tips that you can provide to mothers or fathers who may be in a position where they want to pursue sole custody or change some of the aspects of their custody arrangement, but they need some type of proof in order to do that? Are there
Yeah.
any tips that you can provide those individuals?
Yeah, child custody, if you have a situation where you need to provide evidence for your child custody case, what's most important is always what's in the best interest for the child.
Correct.
And that's what the court is concerned with.
Yes.
But the burden of proof always, you know, falls on you to be able to prove your case. So I think one of the most important tips that I could give people who are dealing with child custody cases is documentation. You know, you have to document every single thing. Another thing that happens in child custody cases, it's hard for people to do things like brainwashing. My kid's being brainwashed by the other parent. But people are surprised to learn that you can actually help prove that. You know, one thing you can do as far as documentation is concerned, if you have, for example, if your significant other is saying things behind your back, disparaging remarks towards you, well, I can't telling their kids perhaps, I can't take you this place because I don't have enough money because mama's spending it on her new friend, or something like that. Just saying things that would make your child have ill feelings towards you. If you become knowledgeable of that, then I would suggest that you don't just address it verbally, but maybe send it through a text, send it through email, something that can be documented. And ask them, did you say such and such, and get the response.
Okay.
You know, and you can definitely start a pattern of behavior so that in court you can prove that this particular behavior is not habitual, you know, I mean that it is habitual and that it's not a one-time occurrence.
Right.
So you could definitely do that. I would suggest keeping all receipts,
Right.
you know,
Okay.
all receipts, things that you buy for the children, places that you take them, clothing, everything. You know, just document your time, the time that you spend with them. Keep a journal.
Okay.
You know, record different instances, you know, that you need to address. You can always keep a timeline of your child, your involvement with your child and things like that. So I think documentation is the biggest advantage you can have with trying to prove your case.
Okay. Absolutely. And being an attorney, I can tell you that documentation definitely is very important. Anytime you're trying to step into the courtroom, you just can't come with stories about this is what they said or this is what the child has told me. You must have some type of documentation. Without documentation and getting into the technical aspects of whether or not it's valid documentation, that's just a whole nother thing. But at least have documentation. Let the court sort it out as to what they want to do with it. The judge does have the ability to utilize their discretion as long as the discretion doesn't go out of bounds. They can utilize their discretion in order to make a determination of what is in the best interest of the child. So always come with documentation, always come prepared.
Absolutely.
Now also, you guys handle infidelity
We do.
cases.
Oh, yeah.
Now, is that appears to be a very interesting aspect
yeah,
of the
Maria,
practice.
I think that's her favorite case, one
Oh,
of her
no.
favorite cases. Because, you know, let me tell you about Maria. You know, Maria, she gets on a case, and if she's on your case, she's not letting you go.
Oh, wow.
You know, she's like, get him, you know. So, you know, I think she takes a lot of pleasure in those. But no, you know, infidelity is really serious, you know, because it hurts.
Yes.
You know, people, we spend a lot of time on our relationships, a lot of energy, a lot of money
Yes.
on relationships, and so people have a right to test the strength of that bond if they
Yes.
feel that people have stepped outside of
Right.
that bond. So, you know, when we do get those calls, you know, we don't like cheaters, you know, because it's not fair to people. You know, just if you're unhappy in a relationship, you know, be responsible enough to be forthcoming about that information.
Correct.
You know, and let someone know instead of dragging them on and doing things. Because not only that, if you're cheating, you can also bring back diseases
That's
back
true.
home.
Correct. Absolutely.
You know, you can bring back diseases home.
Absolutely.
And so that's one of the things that we also tell our clients. You know, it's important to know, you know, what is actually going on, because you can contract something you can't get rid of.
Yes.
It's a serious
Yes,
situation.
very.
You know, and so out of respect for your loved ones or the person that you claim that you love, you know, just be upfront and be honest.
Yes.
You know.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was fortunate enough to go to the big play that was in town last night, and one of the most profound lines that was in there was the main character stating, "I would rather have someone break my leg than break my heart,
Yeah.
because my leg will heal and I can move on with life from that.
Yes.
But the hurt from my heart being broken will last almost forever."
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think as a private investigator, part of our job actually becomes being a counselor.
Yes.
You know, to a certain extent. You know, we had a case not long ago, a guy hired us to follow his wife because he had indications that she was being unfaithful. And we ended up following her to a restaurant where in the parking lot she met up with her lover, parked her car there, and then proceeded to go to a hotel and stayed the night at the hotel. And upon hearing this information, he literally broke down crying. You know, I had to give him tissue, hugs, console him,
Right.
because he had been married for like 30 years,
Oh, wow.
you know, and it was heartbreaking. You know, it was really heartbreaking. And so, you know, we see a lot of that. And it's very unfortunate, and it's not easy to see people in a vulnerable state like that.
Yes, yeah, it definitely would hurt.
Absolutely.
Definitely would hurt.
Absolutely.
Well, I thank you guys very much for joining us today. I see the time is running down here. If any of you out there are ever in a situation where you need some type of investigatory services, please feel free to call Miss Jackson and Miss Joseph so they can help you out. With that, I bid you adieu.